Three, two, one, and we're live. My name is Mavel Hemoli, and this is another episode of the Village Made podcast. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, C4 Designs. C4 Designs is a clothing company on a mission to keep our beautiful Polynesian cultures alive. Visit c4dzynz.com and use code VMP15 at checkout to get 15% off all purchases. Today, we have a special guest from the village. We have Oreta Tupola. Oreta, I asked in invitation, or when in an invitation to come, I was excited about this. And to be honest, I didn't really know. I just knew that you worked with health and in the health department and, in that kind of field, but I didn't know exactly how far or the depth of what you did. But today we're going to get into it, and I'm just excited to learn, excited to hear your story, and excited to for other people to learn as well. So, but I appreciate being kind with your time and making time to come out and do this.
Thank you for having me.
I guess just to get into it, for you, what is the story of your full name? Who named you, and the meaning of your names, your last name, even if your name before you got married?
Yeah. So I'm the oldest child of my parents, and they named my parents are Niue Sushnig and Raymond Mapu, and they both remarried to Ivan and George, and they named me after their oldest sisters. And so my first name Oreta is after my dad's oldest sister, and then my second name is Masina, which is my mom's oldest sister, and my full name is Oreta Masina Mapu Olesenga, which means the moon, the light, the song of a bird, and that's where it came from. But the funny thing is that Oreta is not really a name. They were supposed. My aunt was named after Orepa in the Bible, but I guess it was spelled wrong, so they got Oreta instead of Orepa. But so that's how I got my name. But that's what it means: the moon, the light, or the light, the moon, and the song of a bird.
And Tupola.
And then
do you know the meaning of that? I mean, I guess that's your married name, but
I don't.
Know? Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
No
but
worries.
I know that the last name Tupola was not their actual last name. You know how Polynesians take first name from the father or whatever. But yeah, so there's not very many Tupolas, but so if you know a Tupola, they're related my husband. Yeah.
Awesome. And do you know, I guess, moving from Samoa, what villages in Samoa are your parents from?
Yeah, my mom's family is from Falingiu, her Malufao side. She's a Malufao. And then my grandmother is a Salanoa, a Maunga Salanoa, and she's from Poloa. And then my father's side, his dad is a Mapu from Awa, American Samoa, and his mother is a New Matalolo, and she's from Aua, American Samoa.
Nice.
Her New Matalolo is their title name, but she's actually a Tufanga.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were, for your parents, or I don't know who migrated. Do you know who migrated from your family to Hawaii or to the U.S.?
Yeah, both of my grandparents on both sides migrated through the military. Okay. And it was the way that my grandfather on my dad's side, Siao Mau Mapu, was going to help, and my grandmother, to help bring their family members overseas. And so they joined the military and then brought family members one by one. Yeah. And they lived in Hawaii for a while. But my father and his siblings were raised in Louisiana, in Leesville, Louisiana, played sports there for a while until my dad's, I think, junior year, and then they moved to Laie. They actually lived in Laie and then moved out. But then they moved back, and my dad graduated from Kahuku. Yeah.
Right. And then, so where were you born and raised?
I was born in Hawaii at Tripler Hospital because of the military. My mom was only a junior, actually, in high school. My dad was a senior, and she had me her junior year. So, yeah. And then I was raised in Laie and the North Shore. Yeah.
What was childhood like for you, being raised in Laie?
Oh, my childhood, I think, was the best time of my life. Just being raised around family, and even if you're not blood related, everybody's related back home. And so
The village, right?
just being around that kind of environment of a village, like back home in Tonga or in Samoa, everybody there is connected somehow. And so I loved my childhood because my parents got divorced when we were young, and she was a single mom, and she raised all of us, working so many jobs. We kind of had to raise ourselves. But because of our village, really everybody else's parents, chipped in to take care of us, watch us, give us rides to school and seminary and whatever, feed us, all kinds, And so we never really went without. We never had to worry. And she never had to worry, with which she has shared with me was a lot of stress off of her back, because she knew that we were still going to be taken care of. Yeah.
That's cool. In the home, what were some of maybe the Samoan traditions or etiquettes or customs that were taught in the home?
Everything was based off of first the church, and then also because faith was the number one thing, and then off of respect of our elders, for everyone really, and everything that we did. There was always some kind of lesson or teaching, that came back to, when my mom was young, or when I was young, this is what she told me. And the funny thing is that now when I'm doing the same thing with my kids, or, out in the community, I have to share with people that, all this time I didn't understand why, our parents taught us that, because, they don't have that conversation. They just say, when I tell you to do something, you just do it. You don't answer me back, and you don't question. And so we just did it. But now I'm so grateful for those teachings, because I can understand where they came from. And that's the thing about our culture I love. And I try to tell the youth that if you understand the meaning of these, different cultural aspects that we've been raised with, you'll truly understand why it was important for your parents to teach you that. And I'm so grateful for that.
I know that you mentioned, your parents, or maybe not your parents, your kids maybe questioning, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Yeah, I just came to that realization too with some of the things that my parents did,
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy, But now I understand why they, made it a point for us to go visit family, or made it a point to go, whether it was weddings or funerals or anything, like, we always contributed to that family, and I thought that was cool. And that was part of the village mentality,
Yeah.
helping one another, and in the end, everybody were, we, just like you said, we never lacked anything from it.
Yeah, I mean, because we didn't know that it was about reciprocity, right? We were just like, why do we have to give that family money? We don't even have money ourselves, and you want to go give them money. But, and everybody, it became a thing of, they got out of hand sometimes for some families. But when we understood that, this is the time we give to help out. And when it's time for us, they will come and they will give and help us out, and then when I realized that, I truly understood why it was so important, because who else is going to be there for you but your family? Yeah. So, yeah.
And the language, did you speak a lot of Samoan in the home, or was it taught?
It was spoken, and we had to understand, but I never really knew how to speak the language fluently. I can speak Samoan and a little bit of Tongan, because I lived with my in-laws for so long, but it's broken. It's like pidgin. But my grandmother only spoke Samoan to us, and my grandfather actually gave us Samoan Bibles, my dad's dad, and he said, if you want to learn Samoan, this is the best way to learn. And so he gave us the Bible and just said to read. So I can understand it, but I'm not very good at speaking.
Right. And I guess growing up in Koku, did you have a difficult time in finding your identity?
That's one of the things that was a solid for me. And I'm saddened a lot sometimes to hear the stories of other kids who didn't know or understand who they were. Because growing up, my parents always made me understand that who I was, that I was important, that I represented something bigger than I am. And so everywhere I went, it was everything to represent my family name, which is also can be a pressure for a lot of people. But for me, I totally got it. I understood it. And so when I went out to do anything, I knew you cannot do this half a kole because they're going to say, who's your mom? Who's your dad? And so I tried to represent as much as I could. But yeah, I didn't really have I don't think so. Not as much as other kids.
And growing up, did you feel maybe in such situations too Samoan or maybe not even Samoan enough at times?
Both, actually. Some people would tell me because of the way I spoke, which is not even really proper English, but they would tell me that I'm Sofia Palangi. Kids from Samoa would say I'm not really Samoan because I was born and raised there. But then there would be other kids who was like, oh, she's from, I don't know why people thought like it was the ghetto. Some people told us that, but they said that that I wasn't Samoan enough because I couldn't speak the language. But again, because I was raised to, I don't know, just solid in who I was, I didn't really care.
Yeah.
So I just kind of always did my own thing.
And for you, what makes you proud to be Samoan in your culture? And, just maybe the different aspects of the Samoan, being Samoan, I guess.
I think what makes me proud is who I represent.
Yeah.
I come from a family of strong women, and very strong men, but the women are very strong, and so my pride comes from that. I mean, to know my mother's story and her mother's story, and and the other women in my life. Really motivated me to keep going, even though sometimes it was really hard. And so, I love representing them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that you brought that up, the strength of a woman, and the people that you had in your life that you could label yourself, or you could model yourself after. And I think that's also in being a mother at this point, it passes on to your daughters as well. Mm-hmm. But for you, I know you mentioned earlier about the conflict of the American or the Palangi culture and your Samoan culture or the culture taught in the home. Is it important to continue to find the balance between that? Also, speaking as a mother, things that you want to pass on to your kids, like wanting them to continue to hold on to Samoan tradition, but also continue to explore the Palangi traditions. Is that something that's important to you, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's so important. So because I am so grounded in my own culture and where I come from, I wrote this poem a while back, and it was called My Heritage, and it says, my heritage is who I am, it is where I come from, it is where I've learned that I represent my ainga and we represent Samoa. And I wrote that because of that, to remind myself of where I come from so that I never forget. And I try to teach my kids the same thing, because you have to understand your past. You have to understand where you came from, because that's part of who you are. Whether you were born or raised in that time of your grandparents or understand it, you have to understand it in order to move forward. But it's not wrong to want to learn how to live here and what the culture is here, because this is how we have to survive now. It's not, the same as it was back then. And so for me, being able to live on both sides has been more of a strength than a weakness, because I will never forget where I came from, and what pushes me forward in my future is that I think about the sacrifices my grandparents made so that I could be here. And that's why I want to keep giving back and keep doing better every day. I mean, I'm not perfect by all means, but I think that all they want is the best for us, even though sometimes it may not seem like that, with all the scoldings and lecturings. But really, that's why they brought us here. And so we have to be able to balance both sides. And education here in America is how we survive. And so that's why I push education. But it doesn't necessarily mean traditional graduate with a 4-year degree, It just means that you're continually learning, what your craft is, what your purpose is, and what you need to do to get that accomplished. And that's what I try to teach my kids, because we don't live in Samoa or Hawaii anymore. So, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, lifelong learning, right?
Yeah.
Continue, the journey of lifelong learning.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier about the journey or the sacrifice, sorry, of your grandparents moving here.
Yeah.
With the sacrifice of your grandparents to move to the U.S. for a better life, better, living conditions, better whatever, do you think that they'd be proud of you for the sacrifice they made?
Yeah, although I have this discussion with my grandma sometimes because I said, Mama, was this all really worth it? Because when she shares a lot of her childhood memories, which she didn't have a very much of an education. I think, I want to say not even to sixth grade. I can't remember. But she had to work in her grandfather's store, that's why, and so that they could help provide for her family. But just looking at all the issues we have here versus, back then so easy, yeah? Well, not easy, but they had their own different trials. I always ask her, was this worth, you making all those sacrifices for us? And she always says yes. So it's worth it for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When, I guess, moving on and speaking on education and the schooling that you got, but how did you get into, I guess, just talk about what you do now and like, how did you get to that point with the education that got you to where you're working at now?
Yeah, so you're from Kahuku, so you know pretty much how it is back home where we live. Being from a community that's almost 99% members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, people would think that it would be so easy, right? But behind closed doors, there are a lot of other things going on in families that I never knew about, but I learned about at a young age, especially when my parents got divorced. We had a lot of kids, we hung out, that partied or did, things that we weren't supposed to be doing. But as I started to talk to more of my friends and learn their story, and this was when I was in high school, I just started wondering, like, man, we learn all this stuff in church, but why are we experiencing these kinds of things like divorce and abuse and all these kinds of the sexual abuse? And it just caught my interest way back when. And so I always planned to either become a psychologist or social worker, because I wanted to, as I kept hearing these stories throughout high school of things that people were going through, I wanted to give back and help our community kids, because it wasn't something we knew about. And these were families that I totally admired because, we see them at church every Sunday. They have 2 parents, all this stuff. And when I would find out these things, I'm just like, how hard was that for you? And how hard was that for you to share that with me? Because we don't talk about what happens behind closed doors. And so it's always been something I wanted to do. And I started doing volunteer work in the community and at school, just to help other people, just wanted to serve. But anyways, I got pregnant before I graduated from high school, and everyone was saying, "Oh, that's it for you. You're not gonna do anything." But anyways, we got married, and we had you guys know Tita and
Yep.
Lillian Macayao. They were home visitors for a program called Head Start, and they would come and see my kids at home and these were programs for low-income families. I grew up in the system. We have food stamps, Section 8, we had the whole 9, we had that. And so I knew the system very well. And when these home visitors came to see me with my kids, they were teaching them about gross motor skills and all these things. And Auntie Lillian said, Oreta, you don't want to go back to school? And I'm like, oh no, I'm starting my family already. And my husband, who you also know,
Yeah.
their family was very traditional and said, you have your kids now, you stay home and take care of your kids and let Lee go work. So that's what we did. And Auntie Lillian kept saying, no, you should go back to school. You're a smart girl, blah, blah, blah. And so anyways, she encouraged me to fill out an application to BYU. And so I had a seminary scholarship to go to BYU. And because I got pregnant, that went away. And planned to play softball as well. But that all got canceled out when I had the baby. And see, Lillian was doing these classes at Kahuku called teen pregnancy classes. So she said, hey, I want you to come and talk to these girls over here and share with them your story, because you are going back to school and you had your baby when you were young and blah, blah, blah. So that's what happened. And then the teacher kept saying, can you come back next month? Can you come back again? And so during that process, I was doing that at the school and got accepted at BYU. She helped me fill everything out. We had to write an appeal, and everything got accepted back to BYU social work program. I had 3 kids already, and then every year that I planned to go back, got pregnant. So I said, no, this time I'm going to go. I went back to BYU, 30 years old, then found out I was pregnant with my youngest child and said, I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to finish it. So, yep, I went to school with my son, picked up they would sit in my classes, or people would take them, other students while I was in school. Graduated 4 years at BYU, played 2 years of softball there because softball had always been my dream. And so I played at 30 with these 18-year-old girls, which was not the tea, but I did it. And so I can say I played softball for 2 years, college ball. And then one of my mentors, who was W. Hippolyte Wright, she said, you have a powerful voice, Oreta, and you speak so very well on women's rights, especially in our culture, because of a presentation I'd done for school. And she said, you have to keep sharing your story. Go and apply for the master's program. I'm like, oh no, I didn't even think that far out yet. But she kept saying, you have a responsibility to speak up for the rest of us. And that resonated with me so much. And more because I have 2 girls of my own now. And I really wanted to be an example for them of what I seen for their, or wanted for their future. And so I did. I applied for the master's program, got accepted, graduated, and then went straight into a doctorate program, which is a whole nother story.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah, so I'm doing what I'm doing now because of all women who were examples to me and showed me my own value, and I just ran with it. So
that's inspiring, going back to school, especially with kids, 3 kids at that, and then being pregnant.
Yeah, it was
and even
crazy.
Playing softball too. Yeah, that's inspiring. And so you said that you went to school, you both got your master's and your bachelor's in social work.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you graduated with your master's in social work, what was the first job that you did, or how did you get into the field that you're working?
I was already working for Salvation Army Family Treatment Services, and we had a small office at the Ko'olaloa Health Clinic in Kahuku. We were actually running a nonprofit called Nalelokahi, and it was 4 women who they saw the need for shelters, but there was not enough shelters on the island. So they wrote for a grant, and Lani, I forgot Jerome's last name, but Lani is the person that wrote the grant for it. She was also a social worker, and they hired 2 people to be domestic violence advocates, so that when these women needed shelter, they took them to their own homes and they sheltered them there till they could get into a main shelter so that they were safe with their kids. And I just thought that was crazy, And so I got hired through them right out of college. And I worked with them for 4 or 5 years, just doing domestic violence, and learned so much about our community and the things that were not being talked about that needed to be talked about. And I stayed with them for a while until I finished my master's program, and got hired as a case manager at the same clinic, but in Kahuku now, doing breast cancer awareness for Susan G. Komen. And then the nurse practitioner, everybody knows Natty back home. She said, you need to, oversee outreach and write for these grants. So she taught me how to be a grant writer, and I started writing grants. And eventually worked my way up the chain at Ko'olaloa Health Center, and became their chief of operations and overseeing the outreach department, and wrote the school-based health center grant with our CEO and some of other staff, and we opened up the first school-based health center in Hawaii. Nobody really knows that, but it was the first school-based health center in Hawaii, and it was at our school in Kahuku. So I'm really proud about that, because we needed it.
Can you talk about that? What that is? The school-based health center?
So the school-based health center is a health center on campus. It's so that because we had an absentee, that's how schools get money from their attendance. And we had a high absentee rate at Kahuku for a lot of reasons. Dropouts, people were sick, or, parents kind of got to take them out of school. And, our dentist was not right there. We had to go Kaneohe, Pearl City. And so we really needed it in our community. So we wanted to make sure that our schools could get money and the resources they needed. And if they had a toothache or they felt sick, you could just go to the health center, do what you need to do, go back to class. And so we did that, and we got like top of the line equipment and AC, renovated these 2 classrooms in our building for the school-based health center, and brought on a physician assistant and also a dental director who ran that, as well as one of our outreach workers, and opened it up so that kids could just go right there and then go back to class. And the parents were like, thank you so much. I don't have to take a whole day off of work. We need our check to go take them to Kaneohe and then bring them back. And then they miss a whole day of school.
Right.
And so it was so awesome. And when we had the grand opening, the kids were just like, Auntie, this is ours? Like, we can come in here and hang out, because there was AC and all. And we're like, yeah, this is yours. This belongs to the students. And I was really proud of that.
I remember, when we talked about earlier, before the podcast, that you had talked about being the COO, and then even your kids, their friends coming up and saying like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
Can you tell that story and talk about that?
Yeah. After we opened the health center, we got asked to speak at a career fair and just share our position and what we do, what we went to school, our background and everything. So I did share, and I was just amazed at the kids' shock that I was a boss at the health center. And they used to call me doctor, and they're like, isn't your mom a doctor? I'm like, no, I'm not a doctor. But, they were just shocked that somebody like them from their community who graduated from Kahuku School had this title and position in a place that they go regularly, to get their health care. And for some reason that just stuck with me. I was like, why? Why are we shocked that we can be these people, And after that, it was like my mission to just keep getting out there and telling kids, you can be that person that you see up there that, you think you can't be. You just got to work hard. You have to make some sacrifices, but you can do it, And that's what I've been doing ever since, just writing for programs or being involved in programs to help support our Pacific Islander kids, just recognize their potential and help them to navigate systems, because we don't, nobody understands how to apply for school, right. That you have to take SAT. If they told me that, I would have took that my junior year. I didn't know. So just help them fill out the application and submit it. And before that, the teen pregnancy class that I helped, those girls who were athletes at the time and got pregnant from other athletes thought their life was over, and we had applied for food stamps for them. I said, hey, don't be ashamed. This is temporary. That's the purpose of these programs. We're going to apply for it, get you some food stamps, get you WIC, get what you need, and then we're going to apply for you to go to school, and you're going to go play basketball wherever you got your scholarship to. And I think 2 or 3 of them did go to school and finish. They're not with their partners, but they did finish. And so it's just a little push I think our kids need, because we just think life is over after one small thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing with mistakes, right? We don't let that tie us down, or don't let that be the end of us.
Yep. They have to be.
Although it was a mistake, you just move on.
Yeah. Our mistakes should be seen as stepping stones to better things. And so That's just how we got to look at things.
And I know that you moved here to Utah now, living in Utah. Are you still working in the same field, or do you still continue working in social work and in the health department? Or
I got hired here at the Utah Public Health Association. Utah is very unique and different. We come from the melting pot, of diversity, and then you come here and it's like, who are you? What is Samoan? In fact, a lot of people told me, are you Tongan? And I said, no, I'm Samoan. They're like, what is Samoan? And people think that just you just say you're Polynesian, there's only one kind of Polynesian.
Right.
So having to explain that was pretty brand new for me. And then to get into, these professions, like I'm at the U right now, I work for the U, and working with the state and seeing, just everybody's white, like, was really hard for me. But it's been a good transition, and I've realized now, because I complain every year I'm here that I need to go home. I need to go home. But I recognized why I'm here, and I've been able to do so much here in helping our own community to do the same thing I was doing back home. So I'm doing community health, but really educating not just in our Pacific Island community, but in different systems in Utah, like the State Department of Health, justice system, the education system, just educating them about how to work with underserved communities, how to work with minority communities, because a lot of people come out of these systems with an education that says, go and give them this resource, and they, and help them to be more self-sufficient, but they don't understand the culture, they don't understand the barriers, they don't understand how we learn and what our priority is. Don't come to my house and tell me you need to just go apply for a job and then go get a job and then you'll be fine, because you don't know, what I'm going through at home. And so I've been doing a lot of presentations about how to best work with underserved communities, and just doing trainings for community health workers in Utah. I organized the first community health workers section under the Public Health Association, and they became official in May 19th of 2016, and now we have CHWs across the state of Utah who also help write a curriculum so that we can do certification for community health workers, and they're in their second pilot right now. They've trained, I want to say, 18 new community health workers that represent the Native American community, refugees, Pacific Islanders, and what is... Anyways, there's like 7 of different communities that are out there, but so that they can go out and help their own communities, right? Because we have the capacity to do that, which we talked about earlier. Yeah. We have the answers and the solutions to the things that our community needs. We don't need people to come in and tell us how to do things, but we just need your support and the tools so that we can go out and do what we do. And so we've been writing grants for different programs to give back to our community. And when I first came here, so that I could connect with community first, I joined a organization called Pacific Island Knowledge to Action Resources, and they provide resources for domestic violence and sexual abuse. That's their thing, but they also do a lot of other things. And what I loved about it is that they have a group called Kava Talks, and our men don't talk about this kind of stuff. And I was just amazed that this man who knew nothing about domestic violence, but seeing that there was a problem, developed this organization so that he could go. His original plan was to go to these Kava circles and talk about domestic violence, but he soon found out that that wasn't going to work. Yeah. So he started organizing and learning with his wife, who had nothing to do with this profession in the first place, but because they had a desire, they organized this organization, and now they're doing events and conferences every year. They also have support groups, which, we don't go to either. Right. But now they have groups in St. George, a group in Utah County, 3 groups out in Salt Lake, and now starting one out in Weber County. And I've just been working with them and got connected myself, because, people are like, who are you? You just come from Hawaii. You don't know what you're talking about. And so I really had to build relationships here, which I love to do, and just started doing what I'm doing now. And so all we write for, I work for Karen Mulitalo. She's the director over the Physician's Assistants program at UVU. Okay. And then have worked with Jake Fitisimanu, who is the West Valley City Councilman. And they're just amazing mentors, and they've been doing the work but not getting recognized for it. And so it's just been an amazing opportunity for me to get connected with my own people here, and now to be able to give back because they trust me now. So I'm enjoying everything I'm doing.
Yeah. I know you mentioned earlier about being the minority in the workplace. Does it drive you to know that you're the only Polynesian, and that for you to be a trailblazer, I guess, in a sense, to continue to work to, to bridge that gap between maybe those coming up and wanting to be, trying to do what you do, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely motivates me because there's others like me who are experiencing the same thing. But the thing is, although there are a lot of us who have a degree or whatever, there's not very many of us compared to everyone else. And so when we do go to these meetings, other people have shared with me this experience. I'd go there and I'd be the only female, only brown female, and then with a bunch of white dudes that are at the table. And it was funny, one time I went with the CEO to a meeting, and I was the COO at that time, and yes, Japanese and all Palangis at the table, and I sat down on the table and they came and asked me to go and get water for the people at the desk, and I was like, is he talking to me? And my CEO started laughing, and then he's like, oh, sorry. He's like, Ben, so who'd you get for your secretary, to work for you? And he's like, this is not my secretary. This is my chief of operations. And I was sitting there like, I know you ain't asking me to go get your water. Go get it yourself. But that was all inside. Outside, I was fuming. I was just like, just because I'm the only, female here, for you to automatically think that I'm the secretary or whatever was just insulting. And so when I go to meetings, I make myself known. Like, I sit at the table and I'm very proud to say, not being boastful, but I'm very proud to say that I have a master's degree and that have experience in doing this work for a long time, and that I do know that I do come to the table with skills and resources, just like everybody else here. I deserve to be here. And it just makes me want to keep pushing, because I see other young women who I want them to know that you could be there too. You deserve to be there too. So,
man, continue representing. That's pretty, that's pretty inspiring. For you, I know you grew up among strong women. Do you consider yourself strong, and where do you find your strength?
One of the problems I think we have as Polynesian women is that, that's everyone else, right? I'm just doing my thing because that's what I learned to do. And there are a lot of times that I doubt myself, and there's a lot of times where I struggle because I feel like, because of my own self, I put myself out there to be this person, and then people expect that, and then when I fall, I get it really bad. Like, oh yeah, she said that, but she go do that, and da 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 da, and I couldn't handle that. So we had a fallout with that job. I can speak on it because it's a while ago at the health center, and there was a lot of backlash. Home. Either they love you or they hate you or they fake. But you quickly find out who your village is, your real village. Yeah. And I found that out at that time, and I broke down, and there was, that at that time I wanted to quit. And I didn't want to continue to do what I was doing, even though I had come so far in my journey. But my husband was my solid, and he said, you know what, frick them. You keep doing what you're doing. We go somewhere else. Quit your job. And I was like, quit my job? How am I going to pay the rent? I was so worried, but he that's what he told me. He's like, you want to quit? You quit. So I did. And just every day I just learned how to be stronger and stronger. And there's so many flaws that I have, but again, my village is who keeps me focused and motivated, and I just keep going. And hopefully people will just accept me the way I am, whether I'm up or down.
Right. As Polynesians, Tongan Samoans, as a people, what are some things maybe we need to unlearn?
Unlearn. I think, it's hard. It's kind of a contradiction because they teach us, you need to be a leader. Yet the way we are taught doesn't make us feel very powerful or that we can lead, because we're questioned all the time, or we're told, like, you're doing it wrong, get in the back, And so it's so hard for us, do I go or do you want me to stay? Like, tell me what to do, And so we question ourselves a lot. Sure, I just lost my train of thought.
No worries.
But I think what do we have to unlearn? I think just to know that it's okay to just be you. And if you have a question, ask it. I mean, I know we're taught not to ask questions, to just do what I say, not what I do. But we're in a different age now, and we have to have these conversations that we never used to have before. And sometimes it just takes like saying, Mom, this is different now, but I want to learn. Either you teach me or I'm going to go learn somewhere else. And our parents don't want that. And so it opens up the conversation for us to have. And I think that's what we need to unlearn is sit back and just watch. We need to ask questions, especially the hard ones. Otherwise, those conversations that need to be had don't happen, and then we suffer in the long run.
And just going off of these hard conversations, do you have maybe a message or maybe like any tips or pointers for parents on how to have that, maybe bridge that gap of communication between you and your kids on having those hard conversations? And what are some of those hard conversations that need to be had?
Yeah, so things like domestic violence, abuse, human trafficking, sexual abuse. These are conversations we don't have, but they're not new to our community. And as we work more with Polynesians, we're finding out that it stems way back. The sad thing is that most of these incidents are with family members or close people that we know. And, you're taught, again, another contradiction, right? You're taught to respect your elders, trust your family. One of the newest things that we've been having conversations with youth is this, like we did when we came. When you come in, you felawaki with everybody, you say hi to everybody around the room, and then you go. And I'm saying to people now, if your daughter doesn't feel comfortable going to say felawaki with every single person in the room, don't force her to do it. It's just let them know this is who they are and, be respectful, but you don't need to force them. Because we found out before that a lot of times there were women who were traumatized because it was the uncle they were felawaki with every day they came in that was abusing them. And here we are saying, hurry up and kiss him, and it's so sad, but it's happened. We've had people share their story, and then other people were like, wait, that's my story. And it's just so hard. So for parents, what we've been sharing is just that we just need to have the conversation. This may not be something you're comfortable with or used to because your parents never had the conversation, but it's something you're going to have to learn how to do. Because in this age and time, if we don't teach it, somebody else will. And it may not be exactly, in alignment with what our values are or the way we would teach it. And so if they need help, there are resources out there, to talk about these things so that you can learn how to have these conversations. But if we don't ask, again, we're not going to ever know. And you don't ever want, that's one thing that we don't ever want, is for our kids to go out there with these questions that they cannot ask us, but are able to ask somebody else in the community. That's like the most scariest thing for me, that if I hear my kid went and asked somebody about, sex, and they didn't come to me. And when I say to my kids, why didn't you ask me that? And they're like, I don't want to talk to you. So uncomfortable talking to you about that. Oh, you better get comfortable, because these are conversations that belong in the home before they go out, not while they're out there exploring and learning. So yeah, that's what I tell parents is it takes a paradigm shift, a change of mindset, so that because we're not used to it, but we got to learn how to change for our kids.
What are some of the programs that you've been involved with? Maybe that you started or that you created to help with these conversations, or maybe help the younger generation, or the people that need to ask those questions?
Oh yeah, so back home we did a program called Strengthening Our Sons. We did it with Vaitata when he was the head coach at Kahuku, and Benjamin Mayava. She asked me to come and do something to develop this new program at the time. And so during Hell Week, we had brought, role models in our community to come back and just share their story. people don't understand in our community how powerful it is to share your story. Because if we know what we don't know, we don't know. And so we had different people like Tabo Tupola, Bruce Naluai, who used to play for Vaihi or does play for Vaihi, come back and share their story with these young group of young men who are at their, peak of curiosity, and they're trying to find their manhood and what it means to be Polynesian. And they were doing the haka at the time for these football games, for all of our football games. But I wondered, do you understand really what that means? Because when you go out there, especially if I'm Mari, I'm not, but if I am, I don't want you to just go out there and do, to represent my culture, doing what we do any old way. And so the boys really enjoyed the program. And Tavo got to talk to them about his experience of, going to the U, and then also Bruce Naluai's experience of singing in a band and following a dream that wasn't really what his parents wanted, but he wanted to sing. He loved music. And so they started this band. And then he also got diagnosed with cancer, and just shared how all these different obstacles got in their way, but it didn't stop them from doing what they really wanted to do in life. And those stories are so powerful, especially when you see and hear them from people who are just like you or came from where you came from. They know your struggle, because it's all about connection, right? And so that program was awesome. I loved it. And then when I got here, we're working with youth in the different wards out in Salt Lake, just teaching a curriculum called Families Talking Together. And it's a curriculum that's based on how to have conversations about sex with your youth, but we use that foundation to talk about any taboo subject in our culture. So we talked about domestic violence, about sexual abuse, all of that, using this curriculum. And we've done that at the libraries out in Salt Lake City. And then I am training community health workers across the state who are trained in different kinds of groups and community education that talk about these same taboo topics, but with Hispanic communities, Native Americans, and refugee communities out here. But these programs, I've been helping with PICTAR, the same program that I've been working with since moving here, and also working with. One thing that's cool about this program is we don't talk about this, right? So our community is shunning us out and saying, no, we don't want to talk about those things. Don't come to us with that. And President Tausinga in Salt Lake said, he used to be an ex-cop, I think, and I don't really know him well, but I met him through this. He says, no, we need to talk about this. My bishops are coming to me all the time with these families who have these issues. And we need training. So he says, I'm having a bishop's retreat. I want you to come and I want you to present this. 26 bishops and their wives. Oh my gosh, it was so I was so nervous. I'm like, I'm gonna tell these bishops, and say sex, and they're all Polynesian. So they were there, but then he tells us a little ways down, it's just gonna be the bishops. And I told Susie Malohifo'o is the executive director there. I said, Susie, no, we need their wives there, because we know that if they have any kind of conversation, they're gonna talk it through with them. And if we need to have this conversation, they're the ones that are going to say, just listen, just listen, and then, do whatever afterwards. So we did, and Paul Vainuku was our male facilitator, and myself, and then Susie. And here we are talking about abuse, and no one says nothing. It's like dead silence, and we're like, okay, do you guys really want us to be here? But anyways, it took one of the wives to come out and say, I'm glad you're talking about this because this happened to me. And that was it. Bishop started saying, my families are coming with this, and how do I? And President Tausinga was like, look, I know you guys have something to say because we talk about this at every meeting. So everybody started talking and having this conversation.
Opening up more.
Yeah, and after the meeting, they were like, how do I bring you to my ward? I want you to come and talk to my Relief Society. So we also did the Tongan ward out in West Valley with my sister-in-law. She was the president of the Relief Society at the time. And went and had this conversation with them. And it was just amazing because I've never been in a meeting with, a co-ed meeting with priesthood,
Wise
but the bishop was so nervous about the topic that he's like, I need to sit in the meeting and I'm going to sit in the front. And I was so nervous. But I've learned how to really adjust, the conversation, knowing the culture and also our faith so that I make it work. And just tied it into the gospel principles, which is why I love social work, because everything falls in alignment with my faith. And we made it work. And we had 3 generations of grandmothers, mother-in-laws, mothers, and their daughters there. Wow. That for the first time was having a conversation about why, even though they have different teaching styles, why it's important to them. And these girls are like, I have never heard my mother-in-law say that before. So just connections. It's just so awesome to do this work for us.
Yeah. Are there moments where you feel like the moment where you'd be like, this is why I did it? Or the gratification, or, just like the moment, like the exact moment where you're like, man, this is exactly why I did that. Or talk about some of those moments and those experiences.
That was one of them, was to have those 3 different generations in there and to see them finally come to an understanding about where the other person was coming from. And then we did a youth fireside, like I shared, with Baby J and Analea Brown, and they did it through music. And so we had come to speak, and we had the parents and the kids divided, had a divider in the middle of the room, talked about these topics of suicide, and had a mother sharing her experience in contemplating and trying to commit suicide, her attempt. And was unsuccessful, but kind of shared her story of why and where she was. And at the same time had a daughter on the other side sharing the same story, not knowing that her mother had gone through this. But at the end of the event, we pulled the accordion open and had this conversation across the room. And it was so powerful because here we had youth on one side and parents on the other side. And as we pulled over, I just thought about, our faith, the veil, and how there's our family on the other side. And they were looking at each other after having these, powerful conversations, and everyone just started crying, because the spirit was just so strong. But anyways, at the end of the event, we had them come together to just talk about what they had just discussed on the other side. And the feedback that we got after the event was that I've never had that conversation with my daughter or my son before. And the kids, they really got into it. Those moments when there's a connection and they understand and they're able to heal and move forward, those healing moments for me, it's so rewarding. I mean, because we have a lot of, outcomes that don't come out the way we want them to, a lot of them more than successes. And we have to take those little successes to understand why we need to keep going, because there's still people out there who we can help. And so those 2 situations, and then there's also one that after we had this conversation in one of the wards, the youth, I said to them, what is it like in school for you now? And there was this big poly boy, we just assumed he was a football player, whatever. And he said, I get bullied at school because of the way I talk. And I was like, really? A handsome boy. And he said, yeah, because I don't like to play football. I'm kind of a nerd. And because of the way I speak, the boys tease me and they tell me that, I'm not a, I don't know what they say, mahu, we stay at home. Because I don't play football and I don't want to play football. And another girl raised her hand and said, I get teased a lot because people tell me that I'm not Tongan enough because I'm half white. And slowly the kids started raising their hand and sharing these things, and I'm just like, I wish that you guys could see who you were through my eyes. I mean, who you represent. And so we talked about culture and Tongan culture and Pacific Island culture, and just shared with them, you guys come from such a strong lineage of people. If you find out your history, I promise you, you will come out so much stronger than you know. And so we challenged them that day to go home and if they have a grandparent alive, to sit down in the living room and just ask them questions. Let them tell them their story. And this is what I love to do with my grandma. And they got to start that there at that event. But just to hear the struggles they went through, that pushes me too, because I just want them to see, their potential and really understand what it means to be Polynesian, And so many of them are just lost. And so to even have an opportunity to say to parents, look, you think your kid is okay, but she's not. You need to sit down and really spend some time. And that's the blessing I see out of this whole situation with COVID, is that people now have the time to have those conversations with their kids. And I hope they're not putting it to waste, because, you know, as soon as life starts moving again, we will, you know, naturally go back to being busy. And I mean, I don't think we'll ever be the way it was before, because my husband is such a germophobic now. He won't touch anything outside of our house. But yeah, I hope parents and kids are taking this time to really get to know each other, because our kids are really suffering.
Yeah. And I think also as Polynesians, you know, what we talked about earlier, in finding your identity and who you are, that's what keeps us rooted, and that's when we find out who we are as Polynesians, and the strong lineage that you talked about, the blood lineage that we come from. You know, that it'll be all right, you know.
Yeah, but this is the other thing I want to say, because we are also good at tearing each other down. We do that really well, actually. But is that once we recognize like who we are, we learn to appreciate everybody else for who they are, and there's less judgment or expectation for people to be this certain way that, you know, America tells you need to be, because you understand now, you know, where you come from. And that's the reason why I try to support Pacific people of the Pacific program out of UVU, which was started by a lot of people from back home, because I want these kids to understand, you know, that once they figure out who they are, it'll be so easy to connect with other Polynesians and not, you know, have to tear them down or feel like you have to compete against them, because everybody is unique in their own way, and really they have their own strengths. And then it also makes you appreciate your weaknesses and not see them as, you know, they're better than me, so I don't deserve that. No, you use those weaknesses to build yourself, but also to build others. And you just find out once you get it, that you are, I mean, the abundance of things out there for you is so much greater, because you're not trying to push people down in order to get where you need to be. So
the crabs in the bucket mentality.
Yes.
I guess you wanted to talk about a program that you were doing. Did you want to
so
give us a heads up on that, or what you were wanting to relate?
Yeah, unfortunately, through all this stuff, it got canceled. It was supposed to be last week, but we have moved it to the week of October 8th. And it's the annual Pacific Island Violence Prevention Conference. But during that week, we have a Kava Talks dinner for the men. And last year, or was it last year? One of the years, we had Kalani Sitake Talk, and they make a pledge to, you know, educate our community more, especially our men, about domestic violence and what's going on in our community, and to have these conversations. But they also added on this year, the committee added on 2 new events. One is called Notes, and it's a concert of just Pacific Island women to celebrate their talents and their strengths. But they also added on a women's empowerment summit. Wow. And so I am in charge of the summit, and I have gotten really, you know, awesome speakers. One of our keynote speakers is Sheena Alayasa, who is also from back home. But that's all it's going to be, is sharing our stories, because we find strength through these stories. And once they're united, man, we can do some powerful things. And so at the Women's Summit, it'll be on a Thursday, and then that evening will be the Notes, the concert of women. But it's just to bring people together. You know, we have these, like every other community, have these cliques, you know, of people who in our community that, oh, we don't hang around with them and blah, blah, blah. And my goal has been here to bring these groups together, because I see so many strengths in different, you know, these different pockets, but to see how we can support each other instead of, you know, bring each other down. And so we brought together organizations like the National Tongan American Society, who's run by Fahina Pasi, and two sisters who are OGs from, when this first started. It's the oldest nonprofit in Utah that's Pacific Island.
Wow.
And they were helping families with immigration, and now they're doing health education, civic engagement. They're doing so many things. And then PICTAR, who's doing domestic violence and sexual abuse and resources. And then we have two of the women from NTAS are doing a group called Pearls of the Pacific. It's like a women's empowerment group. And then there's Pacific Island Women's Empowerment Group. There's all these different groups, but they've never known about each other or worked together with each other. So we're bringing them together to meet each other, to build a bigger network here in Utah of poly women. And hopefully that's going to help our younger women, come up, because these women who've been doing this work forever are well connected. I mean, they know people in the government, they know people in the quorum of the 70. Like they are really well connected, and we need to share these networks with our kids. So that's what the summit is about. It's just about women's empowerment. And then they're ending it with the violence prevention conference. And a lot of people, because it's a taboo subject, they don't want to attend, but really just come for the education, like to learn how your story can maybe help someone else. Even if you haven't been in domestic violence, everyone knows somebody who has gone through it or is going through it. And just showing up, because there's power in numbers, will help strengthen these women who are survivors of DV. Because they really are looking for their village, and they're finding it slowly, but a lot of people are like, they keep going back, let them go, really. But we need to be supportive and support them, because they're also our sisters. So yeah, that's what the event is about.
And you said October?
Yes, the week of October 8th.
Okay. So the closer we get, we'll probably, we'll post it and, talk about it as well. Or maybe if you want to come back and we can talk about it, to push it out there for, in October. And so, man, that's amazing. Is it to go to or attend that concert or that, the thing, is it free or what?
So, it's not free, but for community members it is, and all you have to do is let us know, and we will give you a code, no questions asked. For the bigger organizations, we will get a fee. This is the other thing too, we've been doing so much volunteer work in the communities, helping states do these things with our communities, helping universities do research in our communities, and we're not getting compensated for it, and we need to, because the knowledge they're sharing and these research papers that they get paid big bucks for is coming from us, and we're doing the actual groundwork. And so in order to advocate for our community, there's so many things that different people are doing so that we get compensated for what we do. And we want to compensate, our people who are coming to spend their time to share their knowledge. And so in order to do that, we have to make it free. So we are charging other organizations, but if you are a community member, you can get a code and then you can register for free.
And where can people find this information? Do you have a website or Facebook or? So
if you go to pictar.org, which is Pacific Island Knowledge to Action Resources, all the information is on the website. Also, if you want to get on the social media list to get all these events notifications, you can go to the PICTAR Facebook page and just send in your name and say that you want to either volunteer. We welcome volunteers. Or participate in the program somehow, maybe sing. Because, one of the programs out of PICTAR is also run by someone from back home, Ma'afu, Suliafu. And he is the, I don't know his title, but he is over our Pe'au program, which is Pacific Enriching Arts of Utah. And they are doing amazing things.
I just saw a couple weeks back they had an art exhibit or something like that.
Yes, they've had a lot. And
okay, nice.
They do film series, and they've just really been pushing Polynesian art out there. And we have artists who are getting paid money to do exhibits at the museums, at the airport, all kinds of opportunities. But yeah, so many things out there. Yeah.
It's a lot of good information, And I guess for you, with all this information, where can they find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Oh, Yeah.
Whether it's or who you work for, or
Yeah, for people, I work for the University of Utah, and I'm based out of the Malihe Free Clinic, which everyone knows about in Salt Lake City, and then also the South Main Public Health Center in Salt Lake City. I'm there to help people. I don't actually do the applications and all of that, but I connect them to those resources, and if they need help with immigration or health. Medicaid or Medicare, or even just understanding what that means. I can connect you to the best resource for those for our Pacific Islanders. And if I'm not there, all they have to do is call me or email me or Facebook me, and I will meet them wherever they're at. And so my phone number, if I can give that out, is 801-420-2128. And they can just call me or text me and just let me know if they have a question about a resource or they need a resource, and then I'll find out where they can get help from.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's in itself, you alone is a big resource for a lot of these people. Are there any other programs that you're involved with that you want to talk about or that you want to bring light to?
Just everything Pacific Islander. I am involved in, the festivals that are out here. We were so sad that we had to cancel the Pacifica Festival, which is huge out here, thanks to Auntie Masa and her committee. And then we do a kickoff. It's for Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which is in, I think it's August in Salt Lake City. But they have a kickoff out there that they do in August, and it's for communities. So the fees are really cheap, and you can just come and perform or have a booth or whatever, but also NTAS and UPASEC, which is the Utah Pacific Island and Civic Engagement program, which is run by Margarita Satini. They are trying to push the census for our community because we need to get counted. This is so important that we get counted because that's how they appropriate funds to our communities. And if we're not counted, they're going to give us the little money they give us every year. And our programs don't get, we don't get the school playgrounds we want, or the roads don't get fixed. That is why, because you don't fill out your census. So anyways, I'm trying to help them to push this out there. And then also civic engagement. If you are a citizen, go out and vote. Your vote does count. My family, some of them tell me, why should I go do that? Yeah. But it's because, we had a setback in Hawaii when Andrea lost. I'm still mad. Because our people didn't go out there and vote. And so we need your voice. And so whoever's doing stuff in our community, I try to help them and push it out so that we can get these important things done. Because at the end of the day, whatever happens up there on the hill is what, impacts our little community. So your voice does count. Yeah.
Awesome. And then for you, I guess the last question. As Polynesians, what do we have to offer the world?
Oh, a little bit biased.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think it's a combination, though, of our culture and our beliefs. Aside from what religion you are, we are very strong people of faith, and we believe in a higher power, whether it's Methodist or Catholic or whatever. But because those are our foundations, we're able to come together. Even if we have disagreed on things for years, our cultures, which is why I love where we're from. When I met my husband, he's from California, from Inglewood. And all I heard of California was that, because I'd never been there, was that Samoans and Tongans didn't get along. And I never understood that. I was like, why? How do you not get along? We're the same people.
That never happened in
and Hawaii, here we are hanging around each other, you know what I mean? And so it was really hard for me. But as a people, though, when it comes down to it, we really do come together and unite like no other people in the world. And that is something also that I take pride in, that when I go places and people know that I'm from Hawaii or that I'm Polynesian, they're like, I love you. They're not ashamed to come hug me, or even though I'm like, they love it because they know that we're that kind of people, And so I love that about us. And we need to I mean, that's a hot commodity when you were in a place of tourism, and especially in a world nowadays that we're trying to fight this stuff together. I mean, that page on Facebook somebody created asking everyone to come and fast. We're reading stories on there about different people from different religions or people who left the church and got excommunicated, but now they're finding their place on this page because everybody's so loving
United
and accepting. And I
yeah.
feel like I grew up like that. I don't know how families have these feuds and are not talking to each other. And then I said, well, what happened? I don't even remember. My dad was mad at him, and now we don't talk to them, and now I don't know my cousins, And it's so hard for me to understand. But if I could say that is one of the strengths and of our community or being from the Pacific that I love, because that's what Heavenly Father wants us, how He wants us to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just hope everyone felt the passion, that you have for, giving back to your community, helping out those who, maybe are less fortunate or maybe who don't have the resources. And then also because culturally we don't have those hard conversations because it's taboo or it's, looked down on. And so these are some things that, as for you to come on and share, your story and to, get help for those people. But I guess just to end, I just have a few questions just to get to know you a little more. And I guess the first thing that comes to mind, just shout it out, not shout it out, but just go ahead and tell us what takes up too much of your time.
My family.
What do you wish you knew more about?
I don't know, other people's stories. I love to learn.
What or who inspires you?
My mom, my parents, my two sets of parents, all of them. And then my grandmothers.
What are some things you had to unlearn?
That it's okay for me to be who I am. I'm kind of a softie. Other people will say I'm weak because I'm so emotional about everything. And for a long time, I had a hard time fitting in, I felt, and being accepted. And now I know that it's okay to be this way, and that my passion and being compassion is a gift, and it's what helped me be where I am, and I don't have to be different. So
be unapologetically you.
Right? Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
I'm reading this book called The Mastery Key of Success. My cousin Stevie, or my dad's cousin Stevie Numasalolo, got me into this business called Legacy, and I'm loving the book because
he just started. Is that his business?
Yes,
Stevie's. Yeah,
he's the CEO of this company, and he's like, "Oh, you got to get on," and I hate it because I don't like to try to sell things to people. Right. But he renamed this business for Pacific Islanders because he's trying to build Pacific Islanders, and that's what I loved about it. And I'm learning like so many things about business and about how it is really, if you make it not about the money, you'll be successful. And that's what I love about him, because he's mentoring me to do that, to make it about people. And that's all I do on Facebook, is share my story about how I lost weight or how I loved using this product. And people just are drawn. They're just, what are you doing? What is that thing you're doing? And then, I'm not making billions of money. I'm not even making money, yet. But just the fact that it comes from, a foundation of our culture, I'm in.
That's awesome, because it goes back to what you're talking about, lifelong learning, right?
Yeah.
And you're continuing to learn.
Yep.
If you could spend a day with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, someone dead or alive, who would it be? That I don't know, or that I
Up to
knew
you.
before?
If you could just pick their brain, or if you want to,
I would say my great-grandmother, Toi Upu Niumatalolo, because there's so much about her family that we don't know about. Wow. And what we do know is very little, and she didn't know anything. She's from Western Samoa, and her father just took her to live with her another family, and she didn't know why, and then she'd never seen him again.
Wow.
And so right now we're doing her genealogy, but I'd love to talk to her more about what happened. Yeah.
What's special about the place you grew up?
Oh, everything. We have a lot of haters from about where we're from.
They just don't understand.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's just what it is. But everything about home, I love because we're just like a family. Yeah.
What have you only recently formed an opinion about?
Only recently formed an opinion about. I don't know. I think too much. That's why. And so everything I'm learning, there's so much learning. And so
a new opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the luckiest thing that's happened to you?
In life,
Whatever.
I'm not just saying this for brownie points, but meeting my husband.
Good answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Lee.
He's my total opposite. That's why. So, yeah.
What song will guarantee to make you dance?
Any old school jam.
What are you most looking forward to in the next 10 years?
Grandkids, and hopefully my kids getting married first.
What could you give a 40-minute presentation on with no preparation?
Anything about what I talked about today.
Right.
Yeah.
And what hobby would you get into if time and money weren't an issue?
I want to. I love to play softball. I come from a baseball family. My father and his brother all played baseball, but I love to play. So I wanted to start a foundation to help other Polynesian girls who are gifted in this sport. Just to provide avenues for them to get trained and maybe go to school or whatever and play if you wanted to.
I know in Salt Lake there's a Polynesian softball, Taine Malahi.
Yes.
Yeah, that they
by
have their
Bonnie
program.
Brown.
And so I thought that was cool that, it's different avenues that it's not only football or it's not only volleyball,
Yes.
for girls, but football for boys. You can play tennis or you can play softball.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you're thinking about, thinking of creating that for them.
Yeah, I love softball.
When people come to you for help, what do they usually need help with?
Mostly health resources and then housing and food.
What is something what is something you think everyone should do at least once in their life?
Once in their life? Visit somewhere you've never been before. Because I'd never been off the rock until I got older.
Which of your scars has the best story behind it?
I think the getting pregnant before marriage.
What helps you live in the moment?
That's actually a weakness of mine. I am always either looking too far ahead or looking too far behind, and don't live in the present too well because I'm always busy, which is the blessing that I'm getting out of this time is that I'm living more in the moment, enjoying my grandsons more than before.
That's awesome. And if you could give back to your village, how or what would you do?
I think continue what I'm doing now. To just keep representing not just my family name, but the families that are from back home. I post all the time my village, thank you to my village, and I shout them out all the time because they're the part of my journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for your time, being kind with your time to come out and do this for us. And again, this is another episode of the Village Made podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And hopefully, just like me, you're inspired, by her sharing her story. And thank you for tuning in.